All right, so today we are going to talk about ideating and planning content for Christmas. Yay. And the first thing I want to talk about is how you can leverage memes, trends, and current events for your Christmas social content. So Christmas comes every year, and there's going to be certain things that will always be on trend and relevant. So, certain color palettes, Christmas carols, Bible verses, certain activities, as well as Christmas movies and, certain festive TV episodes. And then beyond that, there's also stuff that's on trend right now that you could lean into to make it Christmassy and use that for your Christmas content. So there's really no need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to Christmas content. Like, people know what to expect. There's certain things that they want to see every year. So you can always lean into that as like a jumping off point. So my question to you guys are, what reoccurring themes can you use in your social content? Is there anything that comes to mind that you can always go back to use in social?
Like visual themes, or what do you mean by that?
Like visual themes? Is there any memes? Is there any trends? Things that, like, it's always going to be kind of a fail safe for creating social content for Christmas.
I've seen a lot of referencing Christmas movies, like the Elf movie or anything Christmas. Everybody knows a good Christmas classic, so referencing that, I've seen that's pretty trendy.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I see elf content every year and like people don't seem to get sick of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but seems to come back with a vengeance every year.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe even just leaning into like the sentiment of the holidays. I feel like
Yeah.
that's typically something I see across the board. Um, I mean, if you're talking visuals, I feel like just leaning into a traditional Christmas is always like an easy move, and it's
Mhm.
not as risky. Like I see sometimes accounts or brands will do stuff where they try and like create their own visual identity to Christmas, and it seems pretty like out there. Whereas just sticking to like the classics, even just red and green or like classic textures like pine and tinsel or whatever. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And personal anecdote, when I worked at a church, one year we were like, let's do modern Christmas. Let's like do it very geometrical and do like, black and white and make it very cool. And it did not land. People did not want to see it. Which maybe that's not always the case. Maybe there's certain demographics that works really well for, but I think a safe space is always leaning into those classic Christmas colors, textures, gold, red, all that kind of stuff. Sweet. Okay. This year in particular, something that I've noticed is there's a focus on nostalgia marketing. So I have the Home Alone Google ad here. Have you guys seen it? Okay, we can watch it in a sec. If my sound will work, I know that you have to do something weird to make your sound work. So we'll try. But I've seen this. I've also seen that Mean Girls commercial, the one for, I think, Walmart. And there's a lot of that this year. I think there's always a little bit of nostalgia stuff happening around Christmas time, but I think this year specifically, there's a lot of it. So we can watch this to get the gears turning. And then I'm just going to ask you guys, like, what can you do to take advantage of this when you're doing your social planning? So I think I have to stop my share and reshare with sound. One second. I just lost my page. What's happening? Okay. Well, okay, apparently we are unable to access my mic, so you guys can watch that on your own time. But basically the gist of it is it's like Macaulay Culkin goes back and they're like promoting Google, and he's using Google to do all the things that he did in the Home Alone movie, like setting up his like booby traps and making his mac and cheese and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a focus on nostalgia in that ad. So that being said, I know we didn't get to watch it, but how can you guys take advantage of this kind of trend this year for creating social content?
Megan, would you be able to drop the link by chance?
Yeah, let's try that.
Oh, Michi got it.
Yeah, I had it open. I was rewatching it.
Are you guys watching right now? Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so watching that and thinking about seeing all the different nostalgia marketing that's happening this year, what do you think, like, especially when it comes to a church environment, because that's mostly what we're talking about today, how do you think that you guys could take advantage of this when you're planning social content?
It'd be fun to find photos from your church like years ago, especially if you're at a church who's been around for like 50, 100, even 20 years. It'd be really neat to find like photos of your pastor. Honestly, I feel like there's ways to make it comical or just like make it sentimental in a way. Like you could just have stuff where you're utilizing old photos, or you could have stuff where, I mean, if you really wanted to make it like meme-ish, you could get old photos of your pastor and then have them uh like clip art style, and then have them having conversations or like making announcements. I think it could be fun to utilize in different ways though.
I like that. Or like the I'm just a kid trend. Do you remember that from a few months
Yeah.
ago? That could be really fun, especially like, if it's a church that's really been around, photos from like the 60s or something, getting people to recreate those looks. That could be fun.
That's true.
Cool. Michi, any thoughts?
Lately, I've been seeing people getting their photos done at JCPenney. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Like
Oh my goodness, I want to do
So
that.
funny.
like doing like a Merry Christmas, like a Christmas card or like from the staff or something like that, and they get their photos done in like a more like old way. I think that's pretty cool,
Mhm.
like throwing it back to something like that, yeah.
I love that. And you could even, I mean, you have the actual photo shoot to use for like a Christmas card or whatever, but you could also do some behind the scenes content so that you can show your audience why the heck those are your photos that year. So there's
Yeah.
lots you can pull from that. I love that. Awesome. Okay. Oh, now it wants to play. There we go. Okay. And then outside of like cultural things like memes and trends and all that stuff, there's also the things that your church is already working on, or your team. So there's like, are you going to put up the tree in your lobby? Capture that, take advantage of that. Is your worship team practicing for Christmas Eve services? Capture that. Are there volunteers packing gifts for the community? Capture that. Any of the Christmassy things that like are already happening around, that's great content. People love to see what you guys are doing to prepare for Christmas time. And it's easy because it's already happening. You don't have to stage anything. You can just show up even with your phone, take some photos and videos and turn it into some content. So when you guys think of your times working at churches, what are some things that you guys would do every year that could turn into social content? What are the things that already happen?
I think a lot of what you're already saying, but also just like rehearsals leading up to, we would utilize a lot of that. Or if there was like, if there's special music being made or created, we'd get a lot of photography or try and get photos of behind the scenes content for that. We always created, I don't know if this is the same, but we always created photo booths in all of our atriums in December.
That's fun.
So there was always just like different opportunities for families to do their Christmas cards for free, or just get family photos done at the holidays.
You could also utilize whatever's trending. I know for worship night, we created the social team created a reel with the worship team, and it said everybody filmed individually what time they thought the other team member was going to be arriving, and then they put the actual time they arrived, and it showed a clip of them arriving. So that was pretty cool, and that blew up. And then there's also the trend of telling your significant other to wear a shirt without telling them everybody else is wearing it. I don't know if you guys have seen that one going around. So just using stuff like that, whatever's trending, and utilizing for whatever theme you have going on, because you could definitely adjust it to whatever theme you have.
I love that.
It'd be really comical to get the entire worship team in the same, like, in the same shirt.
Like the most obnoxious Christmas sweater you can think of.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Someone should definitely do that this year. Some free ideas. Also kind of leaning into this, like something like worship photos, or if your pastor is rehearsing his sermon, that sort of stuff. A lot of times what I hear from people is they have a hard time capturing photography during services because they feel like everyone's looking at them, or like there's no way to do it subtly or whatever. So those rehearsals and practice times are a great place to take those photos without the like fear of everyone's staring at me because I have this giant lens. So that's another thing too. And then outside of like the physical things that your team is working on, there's also like, what are the marketing materials that have been created for other purposes related to Christmas? Did you do any blog posts or email blasts? Is there content from past years, like photos and videos from the service, behind the scene clips, that kind of thing, sermon snippets? Are there things that you can repurpose or pull content from that are already being worked on, that there could be some derivative stuff for social in those? So I have an example that we did. This is like very on the nose, like very point for point. But we did an article a couple years back about ways you can use social for Christmas content, and we turned that into a post for our Instagram. Again, this is like point for point, it's 3 ways, all that kind of thing. But you can also pull one specific point and turn that into an entire social post, or you could summarize the whole post, or you could use the article or the email or whatever and get somebody to like script it out a bit and turn it into a video. There's lots of ways without having to like start from scratch. If you have content that already exists, is already being created for other things, it's really easy to repurpose it into social content. Okay. And then the question is always, when should my content be planned out? I'm speaking to the ArtSpeak team right now, but for anybody else who's not on our team, we do recommend that things are planned out and finalized by October, with promotions going live in November. And we do have a resource with like a timeline in the community. But if you haven't planned your stuff out, it's not too late. We can still do that. So we can talk through some simple ways to plan out your content. So I'm going to beat a dead horse with this. Starting with the 80-20 rule is always like the first thing that I would start with. So I'm going to ask you guys, what is the 80-20 rule? Because I've said it a billion times. So let you guys do the refresher.
80% of your content should be entertaining, 20% should be informational.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that still can stand when you're doing promotional content for your services, or Christmas at the movies, or whatever Christmas thing you're doing, instead of like it being sign up, join us all the time, using other types of content that are indirectly promoting that thing. So if you are sharing like a throwback of photos from your previous year. It's kind of creating that sense of FOMO without having to be like, we want you to come, please come. Or creating reels or fun stuff that are not just like, here's our event graphic. And that kind of leans into my next point, which is diversifying your content, just making sure you're doing more than just creating basically a flyer, making sure you're doing reels and carousels and all the different fun things. And because this is like a time of year when like there's lots of social content, there's lots that you can try, this is a good time to like experiment a little bit as well, try different types of content and see if there's things that work well for your audience that maybe you haven't tried before. And then, like I've already mentioned, taking advantage of that low-hanging fruit. So those trends that happen every year, stuff your team's already working on, stuff where you don't have to start from scratch. There's stuff that's already being created that you can definitely take advantage of. And then I recommend brainstorming with your team. It can be really easy when a lot of social teams, it's a team of one, especially for church content. So if you can pull in other people, maybe they're not super familiar with what's doing well on social, but just having a brainstorm session, expanding, getting lots of fun ideas, and then afterwards, refining those and seeing what will work well. But I have found, I think that I'm being really creative until I go and collaborate with someone else and I'm like, wow, those are amazing ideas. Maybe we should do some of those. So definitely recommend that. And then something to think about is, how are your Christmas posts going to fit into your ongoing content rhythm? Are you going to blow everything up and get rid of your rhythm for the month of December? Wouldn't recommend that, but if that's something that you're going to do, how many posts do you need to create? When are they going to go live? That sort of thing. Or if you're just going to add to your existing content rhythm or adjust it a little bit, finding out how many posts you need, finding out where they're going to fit, thinking through that kind of stuff so that you're not just like scrambling and thinking, oh no, I have to come up with like 100 different posts. That's probably not the case. You just need to have a look at your calendar and see where those things are going to slot in. And then as you're creating all this content, don't forget about what's next. It's really easy to push just to Christmas, but Christmas is something that people want to participate in. A lot of people will only go to church at Christmas time or only really participate in Christian culture during Christmas time. So it's easy to pull them in, but always be thinking about the thing that's going to come next to keep them there. So yeah. And then last thing that we'll talk about is writing your social posts. We did do a whole workshop on writing social copy where I talked in depth about this, but just as a little bit of a refresher, my kind of formula, I guess, for writing social content is always starting with a hook, introducing a problem that needs to be solved, talking about how to solve that problem, and then presenting your solution that you as an organization can do, and then this call to action that comes alongside that. So that's all I got. What questions do you have?
I just have one question for you. I know sometimes when we're thinking about Christmas and Christmas planning, there are certain events or things that are happening in the church that is not Christmas related. How can we push that out without, I guess, breaking that like Christmas rhythm that you have and theme on Instagram or any socials?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, in my opinion, I would never want to just like only focus on the one thing on just Christmas. It's still important to show all the other things that are going on around the life of your church. Maybe when you're creating content for that, maybe you're leaning into some of the colors from like your seasonal brand or whatever related to Christmas, but I would say not to shy away from still posting about them, because there's going to be people that need that information, that are interested, and especially if they're just discovering you for Christmas, it's good to see like, oh, there's other things that I could do, other things that would be fun for my family to do. Cool.
What's your least favorite type of post to see at Christmas time?
My least favorite type of post? Oh man. I don't know. Anything with like Microsoft Word art. But that's all the time. That's not just Christmas.
That's valid.
What about you guys?
think I'm kind of getting tired of seeing when people post 3 posts at once. That way on their profile, it's like one whole graphic.
Yeah.
That is like, I'm like, okay, before it was kind of trendy. Now I'm like, that's kind of old now.
Especially when it's like it doesn't make sense by itself. You have like a
Yeah,
little corner of a graphic and you're like, what am I
yeah,
looking at?
yeah. It comes off as spam.
I agree with that. I don't know. Just thought of the question, not an answer.
Sweet. Well, that's all I got.
Thank
Sweet.
you.
Nice job.